If you look on a food label, you will see 3 of the 4 biological macromolecules listed because each provides us with some energy and serves an important function in our bodies. The 4th group, nucleic acids, is not listed because they're not used for energy and are found in all foods made from things that were once living. You can't always say that about processed food. The first group of macromolecules is the carbohydrates. When you think of carbs, you probably think of things like bread, pastas, and crackers. But this would be missing out on an important and tasty carbohydrate, sugar. Someone on the Atkins diet generally cuts out complex carbohydrates, but they probably don't cut out all carbohydrates. If they were to do that, they couldn't eat things like fruits and even some vegetables. Carbohydrates in general have the chemical formula CH2O. Do you see why they're called carbohydrates? The N at the end means that you can multiply the subscript of each number by any whole number and still have a carbohydrate. The carbohydrate our muscles use directly for energy is C6H12O6. Each of the subscripts in that case was multiplied by 6. Carbohydrates have 2 main important functions. First of all, they give us immediate energy. Sugar is a solute dissolved in your blood, which is taken up by cells in your body and then used for energy. If you run out of sugar in your cells, like when you haven't eaten for a while or you're exercising, your liver and muscles store long chains or polymers of sugar molecules your body breaks down to supply your blood with more sugar. A second function of carbohydrates are that they are the main component of cell walls in plants. This carbohydrate is called cellulose. Humans actually don't break down this carbohydrate, but it keeps things moving through your digestive system. Carbohydrates are broken up into 2 groups, simple and complex. Simple carbohydrates include monosaccharides and disaccharides. Some carbohydrates are monomers and others are polymers, depending on their structure. Simple sugars that contain only 3 to 7 carbons are called monosaccharides. When 2 of these monosaccharides are linked together, they form a disaccharide. Complex carbohydrates have more than 2 monosaccharides linked together. 2 common monosaccharides are starch and cellulose. 2 very common disaccharides are lactose and sucrose. Lactose is found in milk, and sucrose is table sugar. Each is made of 2 monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are the individual rings that you see. The intersection of 2 lines in a carbon ring represents a carbon atom, like you see in the picture on the right. Many monosaccharides form rings, and when they join to form disaccharides or polysaccharides, they're held together in the center by an oxygen atom. It's not important that you know the compounds of these disaccharides. I just wanted to show you on this slide what the monomers look like and how they link together. There are 3 important polysaccharides. Glycogen is a polysaccharide made from many glucose molecules linked together. It's stored in our liver and muscles and is a secondary source of energy if we need more than just what's in our bloodstream. Plants store up energy as well. They use a polymer called starch. Cellulose is the polysaccharide that makes up plant cell walls, giving them structural support. The second class of macromolecules is lipids. They're the only macromolecule that's not considered a polymer. Lipids are generally made of mostly hydrogen and carbon. Because of this, they're not soluble in water like we saw in the solutions lab. Looking at the structure of some hydrocarbons, you can see why they're nonpolar. They have hydrogen atoms spread evenly around, so no one end has a partially positive or negative charge. In general, if molecules look symmetrical or the same on both sides, they're nonpolar. Lipids are a large class of macromolecules, so based on their functions, some common types of lipids have specific names. Fats and oils are lipids that are used for long-term energy storage, as well as providing insulation from cold and trauma. Many of our internal organs have some fat surrounding them to protect them. Waxes are lipids that are used for waterproofing. The surface of some leaves feels smooth and waxy so that water rolls off the leaf and onto the ground where the roots can absorb that water. Steroids are also classified as lipids. Steroids serve as chemical messengers like hormones. To sum up, sometimes fats get a bad rap, but really they have many important functions in your body. They store energy, they make up the structure of membranes like the cell membrane, they provide a layer of insulation and help absorb the shock of any trauma. Lipids also act as chemical messengers. And finally, in plants, they have an additional function. They waterproof the top of leaves. One very common type of lipid is a triglyceride. Saturated and unsaturated fats are types of triglyceride. There's two components of a triglyceride, the glycerol and three fatty acids. The glycerol in this picture has a gray box around it, and the three fatty acids are highlighted in yellow. They're called fatty acids because when they bond to the glycerol molecule, they lose a hydrogen atom over here. The terms saturated and unsaturated refer to hydrogen atoms that surround the carbon atoms. A saturated fat is one where carbon is binding with as many hydrogens as possible, so that all of the carbon atoms are held together by single bonds. Because of their compact structure, they're easily stackable and form solids at room temperature. Have you ever seen bacon grease that's cooled down? It's pretty solid. Lard is used in baking, is also a solid at room temperature because it too comes from animals. Unsaturated fat contains double bonds between the carbon atoms so they don't pack as tightly together. They're also a liquid at room temperature. Most fats found in plants are unsaturated, hence why the vegetable oil you buy at the store is a liquid. Unsaturated fats are healthier because they can't clog up your blood vessels as easily. The third class of macromolecules are nucleic acids. We'll study nucleic acids in more depth later in the year, but there are some basic things you should know about them. They're polymers with smaller subunits called nucleotides. You can see from the picture that nucleotides have three components, which are highlighted in different colors. The three parts of a nucleotide are a 5-carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogen base. When the monomers link together, they can link in two different places. The sugar of one nucleotide can link to the phosphate of another. Also, nitrogen bases can link together from different nucleotides. The main job of nucleic acids is to store and transmit genetic information. This genetic information tells cells how to build the final macromolecule, proteins. Proteins are polymers made of monomers called amino acids. Long chains of amino acids are called polypeptides. A single protein may be made up of one or more polypeptide chains. The picture on the right shows a protein made of 4 different polypeptide chains. Amino acids in a polypeptide chain are held together by peptide bonds. Proteins are the most complex and diverse class of macromolecules because of the diversity of amino acids and the chemical properties of each individual amino acid. The order in which they're arranged in a chain changes the properties of the protein as well. There are 4 parts of an amino acid, all connected to a central carbon atom. On one side, the carbon binds with a hydrogen atom. On another side, it binds with an amino group. On the third side, it bonds with a carboxyl group. This carboxyl group can donate a hydrogen ion, and so that's how amino acids get their name, amino acid. The final group that binds with the carbon atom varies between different amino acids. Below are 2 examples of different amino acids. Their R group, as the variable group is called, is highlighted in white. There's 20 different common amino acids and a few other more rare amino acids. The bond between amino acids is called a peptide bond. It forms when the amino group of one amino acid binds to the carboxyl group of another amino acid. When they bind, they produce a molecule of water. For this reason, this type of reaction is sometimes called a dehydration synthesis reaction. Synthesis means build, and dehydration refers to getting rid of water. Proteins have four important functions. First of all, they act as enzymes, which are molecules that cause chemical reactions to speed up. We'll study them more in the next section, but the way that they're able to do this is by binding to the reactants and physically bringing them together. Proteins also help to identify cells. Particular types of cells have specific proteins in their cell membranes, which act like name tags. Proteins also form channels in the membrane that act like doorways that only specific molecules can pass through. Finally, proteins help cells to move. They can make up a tail-like structure or hair-like structures on the outside of the cell, which beat back and forth, allowing the entire cell to move. They also form components of muscle cells, which push and pull against each other, allowing the muscles to move. Because they make up channels that only fit specific molecules, they hold and physically bring together reactants in a chemical reaction, and act as name tags, the shape of a protein is very important. A small change in shape can render the protein useless. In fact, a single amino acid change can cause serious diseases like sickle cell anemia and cystic fibrosis. There are four levels of shape to a protein. Each level depends on the level beneath it. Primary structure refers to the order of amino acids, because some are polar and some are nonpolar. Some have charges and others can form hydrogen bonds. Those sections of chains of amino acids fold into either helices or pleated sheets. This is called secondary structure. Different portions fold into the complete three-dimensional shape, and this is tertiary structure. Quaternary structure refers to how different polypeptide chains interact to form a protein. Not all proteins have quaternary structure. Some contain only one amino acid chain.